Welcome, Tim. It's nice to meet you. Finally,
Yeah.
we had to reschedule a few times, but so we're both film majors, and you are a game developer.
Yeah.
So, I I think that game development is, especially with the game Unpacking, is it was such an interesting way to tell a story, and like this idea of interactive stories isn't really a thing that exists in film or books, and I think that's a very interesting medium to tell a story, especially with your game Unpacking, which we both played and we really liked. Could you tell us a bit about how Unpacking came to be? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean the short version is that so it's me and my partner Ren Breyer. When I moved in with her, we were unpacking my stuff. We're both game developers. We'd both worked on our own stuff before, and as we're unpacking it, we noticed how game-like the whole experience felt. That it felt like you'd take items out and you'd complete a set. Well, we had this idea. I think Ren noticed that it was like you could tell a lot about someone from their items, kind of like a detective story. Items come out of the boxes and you go, "Who is this person? What does that tell you about their life?" And we kind of started thinking about that. And I think the original idea for the game was maybe going to be like a series of little one shots, kind of like different characters, and you'd learn about them each of them. But eventually we kind of came back to it, and Ren was quite keen to tell a linked story, traveling through time. And when she said that, it made a lot of sense. And we got a lot of the big story beats kind of out immediately. It was a very organic idea, if that makes sense. Like it just once we started talking about it, it kind of flowed, and I could see how it was going to work. We talked a lot about how we were going to wrap up the game, because that was a weird kind of feeling. Like we all know how to start it, but how do you we had questions out. Are you moving them into a nursing home? Are you arranging their flowers on a grave or something? What are we doing here? But we ended up kind of thinking about what the arc we wanted to tell, and kind of worked it out that way. But that was the basis for where we were coming from, like that mechanical feeling of like learning about a character from their items, and then just thinking about a story that we could tell with it.
Yeah, I loved that part of it in terms of like it was so because I just finished my freshman year of college, and so I just moved into my first apartment, and so then I moved again into my first dorm. So that was kind of my first time moving personally, and it for some reason it's just simulated that experience like so well, and I loved how the even playing I got like kind of what's the word like I felt was connected. I felt like a personal connection to these objects as the years went on, and I loved how, like at that one scene, I mean, I believe you're moving into a like a boyfriend's house, and he has all this like cool stuff, and you're kind of like making it work with like your stuff, and it was such a kind of like it just didn't like fit a lot of it, but I still loved
Yeah.
like, and I love that like, was that intentional?
Oh,
Right, I got that right, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. No,
Okay.
no. The
Okay.
idea of going like, oh, you're moving into this guy's apartment, and there's not enough space for you. You
Yeah.
have to make space for yourself, and things don't quite fit. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
okay, I want to make sure I
this
grasp
is almost
that
a bit
correctly.
too much on the nose, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, and
It's
so
like,
that's what I was
yeah.
wondering. So you said you kind of quickly connected the story beats. Was this was there like a kind of like an auto? I mean, it's not totally, but like, was there some sort of personal connection that you've always kind of looked at moving that way, or was it you were just unpacking boxes and then you were like, oh, this would make a really good game, and then you added the personal like aspect to it after?
Yeah, I mean, I think we realized quickly that that moving is always significant, right? Moving always corresponds with some kind of major pivot in your life. Whether it's just onwards and upwards, or something's changed and families moved, or moving countries, changing professions, moving states because you've got a different job there. Like, there's always some kind of it always pivots around some big life event, right? And so when we started just kind of brainstorming, because it's kind of thinking, from a game development point of view, and this is the interesting thing. I love thinking about how it works artistically, but also how it works as like making a video game that you can actually ship. So like, how many levels are we going to have? And you want to do as few levels as you can, so you're trying to condense the story down to key moments. But the things that flowed really, really smoothly was like moving out of home, right? And then moving in with other people, like, having to coexist with other people, relationships, end of relationships, growth, that kind of thing. It's like, and so once we started thinking about that, we needed an escalation for gameplay. This is this interesting thing where you start thinking about like, how to make sure the tutorial fits into the story. But we needed escalation, so we're going from like to larger and larger environments. Like the last level has the most rooms in the game, but also feeling narratively correct. And and so we thought a lot about big moments in life. And just started kind of mapping things that felt real to us to the story. So none of it is directly none of the environments are exactly like somewhere that me or Ren lived, but a lot of them draw commonalities, right? There's
yeah. And
I
one aspect I also really liked, and I'm curious at how you could think like this. How did you? I noticed myself putting objects in like kind of odd places, but where I would personally put them, and like it would still be like correct. How did you guys like think of like that? Was it through updates or was it through like discussion? I didn't even know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So early in the design of the game, we imagined it being much more puzzle-like, where you have to figure out the correct place for items to go. Like our first level was a kitchen. This is the prototype, and you have to put the cups on the cup shelf and the plates on the plate shelf, kind of thing. And we found very quickly, the moment we implemented the red outline effect, which we'd kind of always planned to do. So like you'd unpack everything and then the game would say, hey, this is where I think it should go, kind of thing. Because we didn't want you thinking about right or wrong until all the boxes were gone. It was kind of a kind of nice pacing thing. But the first time we showed it to people, this very early prototype version, we got some really negative reactions. People really didn't like the game, kind of bossing them around and telling them where they could put things or not. And it helped that we actually, this prototype was developed at this program called Stugan, which is like a Swedish accelerator program where they pulled teams from around the world, and that they accepted our game and we went over there. And so we happened to have this like international group around us. And so you're getting people being like, oh, this would never work. This isn't what you do in Germany, kind of thing. And so like, it was really good because it meant, we're not just stuck to our personal kind of expectations. And so we realized, oh man, if we force people too much, it's really going to pull them out of this. Like, this isn't what we're trying to do. So we ended up relaxing it a lot. And the way we ended up starting to think about it was more like, can a item conceivably go here, kind of thing? Like, is it obviously wrong? Like, the red outlines, if you see a red outline, you should be like, yeah, no, that's right. Like, I try to put something on the toilet seat. No, that's not where it should go. That's on the floor. Okay, that shouldn't be on the floor.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. So early on we reframed it from thinking about where should things go to being like, where should things not go. It's kind of we really, really relaxed it and realized that the game got better when people used their own rules rather than our rules, if that makes sense. Like, because people have way stricter rules than we do. Like, the shoes have to be aligned front facing out, and you're like, all right, nothing in the game is going to stop you doing that. But if that's what you need to do, you do it.
That's what I really loved. Like, as I played the game, you're obviously going through this person's story, and this is kind of like we won't really say like a specific person, but it's like a person with certain objects. But that's what I like. I could be like creative, and like as I went on, I started to feel like I was embodying the person in the game. You know what I'm saying? In the way this interactive story goes, like I was embodying this person, like this person was becoming me, like personally. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because I could put the stuff where I wanted, and it was I liked these objects, and it was cool.
Yeah, one of the fun things was to watch. We watched a lot of people playing on streams and things like that, and so we get to see how people interact with it. And a lot of people will, as they get further into the game, they'll start by saying, okay, she's got some ponies and they're going to go on the shelf over here. Okay, I'm going to put a backpack over here, and then like a little bit later they'll be like, my socks are going in the drawer. I'm going to put this over here so it's handy for me. And it's like they've switched to talking as if it's them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're thinking about their life, and like they'll get to the boyfriend level and they're like, I'm not sure about this guy.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like, yeah, it's great. It's that very. I think it's something that games are very good at. Like books can do it a lot. Like books are very. I think books are better than film at putting you like really inside someone's head, because you can kind of. And I think games are also quite good at that.
For sure. And I mean, so you guys are indie developers, correct? Yeah. So how did you guys promote this? What did when you started to make it, was this was there already some sort of fan base around it? I'm not really sure. I'm not really that informed on the space, if I'm being honest, but yeah.
Indie games is a very harsh environment to work in. My studio had made a game before, an action game. It called Assault Android Cactus. It had reviewed well, but it hadn't been like a big a big success kind of thing. It done kind of all right for the space, but also quite small, all things considering. Luckily, it was a 3-person team, so we didn't need that much to we didn't have investors that were demanding us to get big returns, and so I started working on this game with Ren, and it was like it was basically like a project that me and Ren were doing like as a couple to like explore this idea, and isn't this kind of cute? We worked on it for a couple of months in Sweden. We got this cool opportunity to go over there, and then we had this prototype. We had this kitchen level that we'd kind of made. And we set up a Twitter account for Unpacking, and posted a GIF of playing the level in high speed, and just like unpacking everything, like showing off our work, right? And it kind of blew up. It got huge amounts of retweets. It ran through the indie game community. We had all kinds of people like being like, "What is this game?" Suddenly the Twitter account had more followers than mine or my game company's Twitter account, and we're like, oh, we've tapped into something here.
It's meant to be.
By the time we got back to Australia, Screen Queensland, which is one of our local screen agencies, had actually reached out to us and said, hey, look, we've got a video game funding round coming up soon. You should enter that. And it's like, when a screen agency reaches out and says, hey, do you want to apply? You're kind of like, I think our odds are pretty good. So we pulled together a thing for that, and they gave us some money to like start working on that. And at that point we kind of had to decide that we're being serious about it, and I looped in my company, and particularly Jeff Van Dyke, who we've worked with. He's our composer, and he's worked with us on all our games, and so we got him on board. And then I also like got the other founder to agree that we would fund and develop this game with our meager funds. It's a very scrappy team. We were very much doing it on a shoestring budget, but like at least we had that background. Like we'd released a game before, so we had business relationships with people and stuff. But yeah, indie's really difficult. Marketing is really difficult. Most of it was done via kind of word of mouth, and we posted stuff and people would get excited about it, and and you could kind of see the hype spreading. Generally with indie games, it's very difficult to like do like proper advertising campaigns. So what you do instead is just you try to be part of festivals or things where they show trailers. There's various showcases throughout the year, and you just try to get attention that way and hope for the best.
Yeah, because I mean, I have this little anecdote. I remember I was playing it on my PlayStation, and my roommate came in and was like, I've played this before. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, so what is the like? This is kind of a broad one, but what does the creative process of making a game like look like for you? Like, how do you find ideas? Do they just come to you? Do you sit down and write, or I don't know?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, I think ideas for games come up a lot faster than you can ever make games. It's and yeah, there's a lot of it's more for me. It's much more about a filtering process and trying to kind of evaluate what makes sense and then what ideas seem interesting. There's a thing I've heard other game devs talk about that I also subscribe to about you're trying to choose an idea that's something that you can make, something that you think is has a market, and something you think should be made. And it's kind of like a trying to find something in the three circles that overlaps. And it's really difficult because sometimes, the thing that you're really passionate about, you look at it and go like, how would I sell this? Who would buy this? Would anyone want this? But at the same time, if you look at something and you go like, oh yeah, everyone's really into roguelike cooking sims or something, and if you don't want to make that, that would be a terrible waste of your time. Like I couldn't push myself to make that. I would do a bad job. I would lose out to someone who was genuinely passionate about that kind of game. So I never want to work cynically, if that makes sense. Like I always want to, and it's funny because a lot of people notice that the previous game I saw, Android Cactus, is this very action pure shoot 'em up. It's like robots exploding, and it's a really tightly tuned action game. And so to go from that to Unpacking, a lot of people asked us, "Hey, what happened? What's with this kind of thing?" And it's like, well, I really like the moment to moment shooting reflex based gameplay of Cactus, and I also really like the storytelling and subtle kind of emotional stuff of Unpacking. Like both of those really grabbed me as projects.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to make Unpacking then? Because I mean, you talk about kind of needing some sort of passion to make it. Like, how long does it take?
So Unpacking took about 3.5 years of
Okay.
full-time development. It's the problem with indie is like they're small, but like your team's small. And that went longer than we expected. I'm trying to remember I can't remember if we were like, but and that was the same with Cactus as well. We thought we shipped Cactus 2 years later than we intended to, and nothing really went wrong. It was just took that long to make the game we wanted to make. With Unpacking, I think I'm trying to remember what our original projection was, but it definitely went at least a year over time, kind of thing. And we could see that coming. Like, as we were working on it, we're like, no, it needs more work. We're going to do more of this. We're going to give it what it needs. But 3.5 years. Like I think the Stardew Valley guy took 7 years or something like that to make his game. He was working, not quite entirely solo, but very, is pretty much a one-man band kind of thing. So indie games can be like that. It's where they take us a huge amount of time.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I know nothing about the game development space. Like, what does the general? Because I'm interested in like, I'm a film student, so I'm just interested in learning, like, just about different mediums because it's just interesting to me. But what does the process look like? Like step one, step two. Like, do you have something like that?
I mean, so it's funny, right? Because I only have a light understanding of filmmaking. Like I find it interesting, and I find there's like really strong links between every creative pursuit. Like I draw, but I also now program and make video games. I animate. That was my primary discipline before I kind of went indie. Now I have to do everything. But it's really interesting to compare and contrast. Big game studios, for instance, will kick off a project. There'll always be a pitch document, and they'll have to get someone with money to sign off on it. Same with medium-sized studios. They have to get a publisher who funds things because it's very rare if you've got like 30 people, or even 15 people, which is a smaller mid-sized team, you're not going to be able to just bankroll that yourself. I guess it's similar to film, right, where there's always a funding component to anything bigger than a small, a kind of a weekend project kind of thing.
Student film.
Yeah, and so generally in games there'll be a pitching process where someone is like figuring out a game that they think they can make and why they think they can make it and why it's going to have appeal and why it's going to be a good idea. Depending on the process, there'll be a prototype or a vertical slice, which is kind of a horrible idea. I think it got started by, I want to say EA, but I forget which company started it. But this is the idea of having a little bit of the video game that looks finished, but it's just really small.
Yeah.
So it's like they want a vertical. So it's like a cake. Instead of having like a bit of the start of the cake, they want to see the entire cake from top to bottom, but like just a tiny slice of it.
Interesting.
So it's basically a polished prototype. I guess in film it'd be like if you had to do one scene, but like taken to final production quality and then show them.
Yeah.
And say,
or I mean,
like this.
Marvel movies don't usually have a full script done by the time they start shooting, which is insane to me. But so are there any does such thing exist as like is it always internally pitched or can it be externally pitched to a studio?
So it kind of goes a few different ways, and this is so we're getting a little bit out of indie space at the moment, but like I worked in larger studios before I went indie, and basically the two ways is that sometimes like a studio, a team of people will come up with an idea internally and they'll pitch it to the people above them, which is generally like the parent company or some larger part of the company, or external publishers. That's another thing. So maybe you've got a small company and they pitch to like Ubisoft or EA or something like that and say, we want to make this game. It's going to be a racing game where you fight people, and they'll have a pitch, they'll have a name, they'll have a bunch of concept art, they'll hype it up, they'll have meetings and they'll go over this, and then they'll buy it or they won't kind of thing. Sometimes I've seen the other thing where a company, like Ubisoft or something, might go around a smaller studio and say, hey, we want to make this game. Do you want to make this? It's going to be, we've got this idea. Maybe it's a license. Maybe it's generally a license actually for that when it comes from outside. Sometimes it's a combination. Hey, we want to make this kind of game. Why don't you pitch us on what it would be? And so that's the same for like mid-sized studios, just on a smaller scale. And then indie is where it gets weird because generally, there's still the same process, but you're expected to kind of work on the game independently for a bit, and then depending on your scale, you might be pitching that to a publisher as well and say, hey, this is the game I'm working on. But in indie, there's often the case that you might be working on a game, and throughout development, you keep throwing it at people saying, hey, we're making this. Hey, we're making this. Do you want this? That's what we actually did. We worked, except it's a little different because of the deal we made. But like we published through a company called Humble Games, which is part of the Humble Bundle. So we talked to loads of different publishers. A lot of the publishers talked to us as well. Once we put the GIF up and it got really popular and we started getting numbers on social media, companies would reach out and say, "Hey, do you want to talk? Do you want to publish a kind of thing?" And we talked to a whole bunch of different companies before making a decision there. So that's the kind of ecosystem. It's also possible to self-publish in the indie space, but.
I see. So, okay, going back to the Unpacking. So, like, I was playing it and I was like, wow, this is such a simple and great idea. Like this is just, it's like, I loved, like, the simplistic nature of it. But when you were developing it, were you ever like, is anyone going to, like, want to do this?
Yeah, constantly. I operate with this kind of feeling of, like, when I'm making a prototype, when you're trying to go from just an idea in your head to something that you can play, I kind of have this idea of gates where you make a prediction about something and be like, if I'm not wrong, people will like this, once I've made this much mechanic, once I've got these features in, people will react favorably to it and they'll like it because of these reasons. It's like a prediction. And then you go ahead and if you meet that prediction, great, you can keep going. And if you don't, it's a really good time to stop and reconsider if maybe you need to abandon the whole thing, maybe you need to pivot, something's gone wrong. Like, do not proceed as planned if you've run into one of these problems. And so with Unpacking, we constantly had this where, like, I think the earliest versions you could take some plates out of a box, like they just popped into your hand and you could put them on the counter. And like, is this fun? Do people like positioning, snapping plates to a counter? And it was like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You can put a toaster on the counter. Like, it's not a game, but it feels all right. It feels good. It's like, okay, that's good. And then the big one we had for us was story. So our prototype level was a kitchen, which was actually really good. People were really into it, which was surprising because it's a kitchen. But what we noticed is everyone would project their own experiences onto it. Like, they'd be playing it and they'd be taking something out and they're like, spatula. Yeah, I got it. They had this spatula and it got caught in the drawer once and they're suddenly pulling out their own stories and projecting it onto this kitchen already. Like, we realized we made a game which created a space for people to think about their own stuff, which was like, hey, this is a good sign.
Yeah.
But the big thing that we were worried about was the narrative, like across levels. So we made the kids room the first level of the game, and we had shown that at some shows. Oh, that's another part of indie dev. We were doing a lot of public demos, so we would take the game out and let people play it at events. We did one in Sweden before we even left. We did one in San Francisco. We've shown it in Japan, and obviously a bunch of places in Australia. So we kind of traveled a fair bit and let people play the game, and you'd be seeing throughout development and see what they think. And so we had the kids room, and people liked the kids room, and that we were really worried because I'm very cynical. I've got this thing of like, what if we just figured out that people just really like kitchens? What if that's the whole appeal of this game? We'll make a bedroom and people are like, nah, I just like the kitchen. So we made the kids room and people liked that. It was well received. We're like, okay. But the next room was going to be the student dorm, and that's going to have 3 rooms that you can switch between, like unpack the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen. And so it's going to be bigger, multi-room, and also it's going to connect to the kids' room. You're going to be able to realize that the person that was in the child's room is now going to university or something. And now I'm nervous. Like, what if people hate that? What if people find the 3 rooms annoying? Like, they don't like switching between the rooms. And so, like, what if they don't like what if they go like, oh no, I just like unpacking a single room and being done with it, kind of thing. But we showed that and people were really into it. They immediately got the idea. Like, you could see the the eyes light up when they got to the next room and they realized items were coming with them. And they would start suggesting things like, oh, and this could happen, and this could happen. And at that point, that's a really good sign because it means that they're invested in what you're doing and they want to see more of it. It's like watching a TV show and getting excited about what characters could do next episode. You're like, yeah, you got them, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's because the thing about, for me, that kept me really engaged was, like, I really enjoyed unpacking, but there's something so fulfilling about being done, taking all your items out, that, like, I'd be like, oh, this felt so good. But then it's not like I was like, oh, I have to do it again. It was like, oh, well, what happened? What's with the story? I was kept engaged from the story, by the story. You know what I'm saying? And so it was the story. Did you, like, when creating the game, did you, as you went on, did you develop the story? I know you had the beats initially, but like so much of the story is done through objects. Did you guys make like lists, or like was it just like, how'd you do that?
Yeah, there were a lot of lists. A lot of the game involved very large spreadsheets. Some of the tech I wrote was importing spreadsheets in so we could do like checks and validation and all this kind of thing. But yeah, no, we had the. So we kind of worked kind of big to small kind of thing. Like, we had the big beats, we had the big ideas in place, and then we kind of just worked in closer and closer. And we thought about, one idea we thought about a lot was threads. We didn't want there to be, we thought it would feel more organic if there were like multiple threads. So we had I think there's a chart somewhere I've got where we've got like her personal life versus her relationships versus her health. That was an interesting aspect, and versus her professional life, like, you know, her job stuff. So there's a bit where her professional life crashes out, like she's not getting work, like she's trained as a graphic artist, but is clearly working at a supermarket kind of thing. And then like she's dating someone, but that doesn't work out. And the idea was to let some of these rise and fall at different rates, so that you're not just having this kind of like everything gets bad and then everything gets better. It's like life is complicated, life is messy, and things are happening. And we hoped, because it's funny, there's so many of these details you can't just write into the game. You have to then tell it with objects. And so everything you'd come up with an idea, and then you go, what objects would that result in? If you know, what fingerprint would that leave behind? And sometimes you'd be like, no fingerprint. We can't tell that. We can't tell that idea. It's no good.
Yeah.
Other times you'd think of an item and it'd be really interesting, and that would make you think of a story beat. Oh, maybe I think Ren thinking about like the souvenirs that she would collect. So over the course of the game, like she's getting more little souvenirs from, there's a little red bus from London and an Eiffel Tower and a windmill. And it's ambiguous as to, has she been traveling and gone to these places, or does she have a relative that keeps bringing her back stuff? Which I think is what we were thinking. It's like she has someone who's doing Europe travels and keeps sending her little knickknacks. But like the idea that they kind of keep adding to it, like it gets you engaged. You can think about it. There's something there to that.
Yeah. I really like what you just said about the you thought it was the you kind of interpreted it as a relative bringing it back. It's weird how, like, this is kind of what I was talking about when you like embody the character. It's like we kind of I love how we get to fill in our own stories, because my interpretation was just like, maybe she bought them, or yeah, I think that's what I thought. I was like, maybe she bought them. And then I remember that what kept me so engaged, I mean, was of course the story and the mechanics, but like it wasn't like you went to a new level and then you knew exactly what was going on. I remember I got to the boyfriend level, and I was like, this is interesting. This is not what I thought. This is not what I thought this person was at all. And then I got to piece things together. You know, that's what I loved about that, you know, interactive element. And just having to put my objects behind like another one, it was heartbreaking.
Sorry. Yeah, no, we thought a lot about, because one of the rules obviously is that you never see the packing process, you never see anything between the unpacks. So you only get that. The only time we get to cheat it a little bit is when someone moves in with you, and you're unpacking their stuff. But otherwise, it's all about that detective work, looking backwards. We talked about it feeling like seeing a story through a mailing tube, and you only get a tiny little look at it. In a movie, you could imagine it doing it like you just jump forward in time, and the audience has to reconstruct what must have happened because that guy's got a big scar and this other person's got a beard now, kind of thing. Like, you know, stuff has happened, but you just infer from their conversation, you know, what's happened. It's a similar kind of thing, and that was like intentional, right? Because it made like, I think my favorite one was going from the boyfriend apartment to the parent house, mm-hmm. And depending on the player, sometimes that would hit them like a gut punch kind of thing, you know, and it was because it was kind of immediate. Like there was a sense of like, okay, I know what's happened here. I can fill in the blanks. And it's just like, yeah, so we really looked for those moments, basically.
That was, okay. Sorry, what there? But so, were the feature, like, did you ever have to like add features? I mean, features I feel like a kind of a complicated way to put it. I'm not actually sure, but did you ever have to like streamline it and make it simpler? Like, did you ever get kind of carried away with a certain idea and then have to bring it back, or maybe an idea came to mind halfway through development or something like that?
Yeah. There are a bunch of things we kind of either had to simplify mechanically. Like it's funny. One of the things, the game looks quite simple, and it's intended to be quite simple, but like it's actually horribly complicated on a technical level. Trying to figure out to make sure every item can like interact properly, and the drawer system. So like you can pull out drawers and open doors, and the doing that with with pixel art and making sure that everything layers correctly is actually a technical nightmare. But as a player, you're not supposed to think about any of that stuff. You just go, rolling pin goes in drawer, drawer closes, everything works. Mm-hmm. Under the hood, that was my nightmare trying to make it all work. But the point was to make it feel seamless. One thing we added, for instance, was like originally you had to rotate items manually, and like you can rotate items to put them where you want. But if there was a spot, we added auto rotation so that if there was an item, if it was a 2x1 item, and there was a 1x2 spot, it just rotates to go on that spot and it snaps in. Because we noticed that people would have an item that they could put somewhere and they weren't rotating it, and so instead they said, "Oh, it can't go there," and they would just like put it somewhere else. And I actually kind of, me and Ren kind of had a kind of ongoing argument here where I was thinking, no, rotating it is is gameplay, is a challenge. Like you have to figure out that you can rotate items to fit them in. And eventually I just added it as a mechanic to see how it would feel. And I was like, okay, no, the game feels so much more correct this way. It's okay, I was wrong and this is going in. But yeah, there's a few narrative things that we had on our mind. We had an idea for a cat, which would have been really great, and the cat was going to work like an item, so you could pick it up and move it around. But every time you left the room, it would just like relocate itself somewhere else. But you know, that was a bit out of scope. So and there's a few other reasons why it would have been a bit tricky. But like there was a bunch of ideas. We considered a lot of stuff.
The rotating change was a good one, I have to say. I'm happy you did that. So you said you first studied animation, or that was your main thing. Do you still like animate the game? Like how does?
Yeah, so Unpacking has the least amount of my animation in there. I prototyped the box animation, like the flaps opening up and when it folds up and gets thrown away. I kind of mocked that up in 3D, and then Ren did all the pixel art, to make the box actually look pretty and stuff like that. But normally I do I'm a 3D animator by skill set kind of thing. So if the game's got 3D animation, I'm doing the animation because it's like I love that. But Unpacking had like no 3D animation, so I just did programming.
Okay, so but an animator, is it? This is a very basic question. When an animator animates, are they like drawing with the mouse?
Oh, so 2D animator, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, generally not a mouse, probably a tablet or something, but
fair, yeah.
But I'm a 3D animator, so I'm controlling 3D armatures and setting up keyframes that way. So a bit of a different process, but yeah.
Or sorry, go on.
Yeah, but like Ren and Angus, who did a lot of art on Unpacking as well, they would do animation like frame by frame. So like they would draw in pixels, go to the next frame, change the pixels, go to the next frame, that kind of thing.
Okay. I was okay. But then in 3D animation, is it more like Blender kind of thing?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously different stuff, but like that kind of thought process.
I mean, Blend is a 3D animation package. I was using I mostly use 3D Studio Max from my industry days. But yeah, the process is largely similar. Generally, 3D animation is all done with skeletal animation. So you have like a series of bones and joints under a mesh, and you're just like you're setting their rotation and change over time.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Right. So we won't. One more question. Sorry, we won't torture you any longer. I know we've had some bad communications skills. I did personally, email wise.
Tim, are you currently in the process of developing any games right now?
So after Unpacking, our studio did another game called Tempopo. It was a puzzle game, and that came out earlier in the year. And so currently, I'm kind of taking a break, and I'm still like prototyping and thinking about ideas, but it's yeah. The goal is to take a break. Basically, Unpacking did so well that it kind of meant that I didn't get to take a break, and then I had to jump on and help with Tempopo. And so now I'm trying to take a break, and it's a whole thing. But in theory, we will then figure out a future project.
All right, and then for students interested in entering the industry, like, do you have any like practical advice or any advice about just starting a career in game development or even indie game development?
Yeah, it's a tough field. I've heard film is a horribly tough field. I have friends who left games to go to film and then came back to games and said, games is relaxing, and I'm like, oh no. Um, it's tough. I think for indie stuff, like the best thing to do is to just tinker and like learn, and there's our games have been made in an engine called Unity, which is popular engine because it's kind of mid-sized. You can do some pretty big stuff with it. There's like Godot, which is a fully open source free engine, which is also very capable. There's a lot of engines out there. A lot of people are still using Game Maker and other kind of engines. But the main thing is just to like get your feet wet and actually like make stuff. Like going from ideas to something playable on screen, I think is the biggest leap you get. Like, it's like it's just knowing that it's quite difficult and it's not going to be an easy path. But like I think like a lot of people in creative paths are doing it because we're kind of compelled to, not because we think there's like it's going to be an easy time. But practicing, obviously collaborating and finding other people who are into what you're doing. Ideally, if they do slightly different things to you, is a good way to start. Putting together a little bit of a team. But yeah, I think prototyping and assessing, like, the sooner you can get something on screen that does what you expect it to do, the sooner you start making kind of gains as a game designer, I think. But yeah.
Just so is that like halfway point kind of the toughest?
Yeah, like being partly into like there is a really dark period in the middle of a project where the thrill of kicking off the project has worn off. But the finish line is uncomfortably far away if you can even see it, and you're just kind of slogging through it. Depending on the size of the game, that's a really dark place where it can be very hard to keep going, and you need all the motivation you can get. And the kind of two ways to get around that is to either try to make something small so you can kind of rush through that spot, or
Yeah.
just make sure that you've got like be prepared for it and trudge on.
All right then. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for having me.